Alright, this is going to be a clinic on our Thermobag here at the store. Our Thermobag is a Swix Thermobag, and basically it's a sleeping bag with a heating element inside that brings the temperature of the bag up to about 50-55 degrees Celsius. The bag itself is pretty simple. Insulated bag with a rack inside for the skis. It has a really precise heating element and a digitally controlled unit over on the side that you can set the temperature and it brings it right to the desired temp. And basically what you do is you rack the skis into the racks here, base up with a softer base prep wax. And when the bag gets up to the correct temperature, that wax becomes molten and it drops down into the skis, deep into the pores, lets the air out of the bases. And it's a great way of getting wax into the skis without putting a lot of heat into them like you would with an iron. Okay, this is the digital controller, and all you have to do to start the unit is to flip this switch over here on the left, and that's going to turn it on. It's going to go through its test mode, and then it's finally going to settle in, starting the temperature to raise up to whatever you have it set at. Right now it's set at 50 degrees Celsius, and generally speaking we're not going to have to mess around with that at all. Occasionally we might go to 55, but it's a rare occasion. And so that is started and it's bringing up the temperature. And then over here in the bag is the actual heating unit. And there's some electric coils inside here, and this is a fan, and it's really simple. Just pushes the air through the bag. It circulates when the skis are in the racks. And when we shut the cover here, it's a sealed system, and it comes right up to the correct temperature, and it just stays there until it drops, and then the thermostat turns back on. I just want to talk about the waxes that we'll be using for the Thermobag. There's going to be 4 choices here, and it just depends on the service that we're performing. With our Thermobag treatment, some of our services like the Olympian Prep are going to be using a higher quality HF wax. So if we're going to be using the HF BWs, it's going to be the 10 series because it's the softest of the HF waxes. Then we also have the Moly Floral Wax for Moly treatment for Thermobag, and that's going to be a premium wax that we use. That's an LF Moly wax. And then our standard workhorse base prep wax is going to be the 99. Okay, now we're going to get started with waxing a pair of skis and getting it prepped for the Thermobag. We're going to have to get set up with a pair of vices. Going to have to band the brake on the skis to keep it down. And then we're going to be working with the base prep series from Swix. There's the base prep 99 and the base prep 88. The 99 is going to be the softer of the 2 mixtures, and generally speaking, this is what we're going to be using for Thermobag work. Also going to be using the Glide Wax Cleaner, and we're going to need a nice sharp scraper and scrubby for cleaning the sidewalls. Get started waxing a pair of skis to go into the Thermobag. It's a pretty simple procedure, and it's really pretty standard compared to what we normally do for waxing skis. The first thing that we're going to want to do is clean out the base material here. And we just take a sharp scraper, run it down the ski, remove any filings that might be in the ski, or anything that we don't want to be in the base material. And then we can go through our brush progression, and what we're using down here is the large steel brush. That's going to be the first brush. The medium brass brush is going to be our second brush, and then we're going to be finishing with the stiff nylon for our last brush. Like I had mentioned before in the past, anything with metal in it, it's going to be a directional brush. You want to make sure you only work it in one direction. Whereas the nylon brushes you can scrub with. And you're going to want to start at the tip and work your way down the ski here. And after I do that first step with that steel brush, I'm going to want to wipe the ski off here with a nice clean. Okay, I'm going to take my clean cloth, just run it down the ski like this. And at this point, I'm just going to want to put on some Glide Wax cleaner. And what this is going to do is just clean off the top layer of wax. It's not going to go deep into the ski. It's going to make a little bit of room for our base prep wax and just kind of clean the base material and get it ready for the wax in the Thermobag. You can spray that right on the rag. Just wipe that right in. Alright, once that base cleaner is on there, we can move to the next ski. We're going to let that dry for about 10 minutes and then we can start our waxing process. Okay, now with the ski dried and that Glide Wax cleaner procedure done, we can get ready to apply our waxes. We'll finish our brush progression, then apply our waxes. The first thing I'm going to do before we get started there is put a little bit of tape over the bindings to make sure that we don't have to clean up a big mess off the bindings when the wax drips over the sides of the skis. And then once that's in place, I'm going to finish our brush progression. I guess the first thing that we should do is just kind of hit the ski with a clean cloth. And then once that's done, we can go into our next brush, which is the medium bronze brush. It's a directional brush. Start at the tip. Work your way down the ski. And then you can finish with the polishing nylon. And then I just wipe the ski off one more time with a clean rag. Alright, now at this point we're ready to apply our Base Prep 99, which is going to be the wax that we'll be using for the Thermobag. Okay, now in all the Swix waxes, there's going to be an iron temperature recommendation on the bottom of the package. With the softer Base Prep waxes, you don't need a really high temperature because they're soft and they melt fast. And what they recommend here for the Base Prep 99 is 110 degrees Celsius. So right now the iron's coming up to temperature and it's actually set at 130, so I'm just going to dial that down to 110. And then the iron will come up from 86 to 110 and stay right there. Before we get into melting the wax onto the base, what I like to do is just take some of that Base Prep 99 and rub it on the base, just to give the ski a little protective layer of wax from the iron. It's not going to do a whole lot, but it's better than nothing. And once our irons come up to temperature, this has come up to 110, we're just going to go ahead and drip that right on the ski. And you're not going to want to be afraid of using this wax, especially in the Thermobag, because as that wax drops into the ski really soaks it up and the wax disappears quickly. It's almost like painting a dry siding on a house. Dry siding will really soak up the stain or paint. You want to make sure that you get enough on there. Same's true with the skis. So once you have a nice layer of wax on there, just a couple of passes with iron, and the key here is not getting the bases too hot. The Base Prep 99 melts really quickly. It's one of the easiest waxes to work with. You want to take that wax right over the tip. And then here on my second pass, I should be able to get all the wax into the base and be able to see the cuts of the grind and not see the wax where I drifted in the ski when I started. Okay, 2 passes. You can see that the wax is definitely penetrated into the base. There's no heavy lines where I drip the wax onto the ski. That's edge-to-edge coverage that goes completely over the tip of the ski. At this point, the skis are waxed and ready to go into the Thermobag. The only last step there is to remove this tape from the side of the ski. And then I just want to clean up the sidewalls. You want to make sure you scrape all the wax off the sidewalls, because when the skis go into the thermal bag, that wax on the sidewall will actually drip and drip into and like fuse with the sidewall material. And with the BP99, it's not a huge deal because it's clear for the most part, or yellow. But if we're using an 88 or a Molly where the wax has a stain or a coloring to it, when you go to scrape that off later, if you don't get it off the ski, it'll actually stain the sidewall and it looks a little bit messy. So I like to get that cleaned off if I can beforehand. Then we wax the other ski, and then the pair is ready to go into the thermal bag. All right, so we're getting ready to load up the thermal bag. So what we do is load it in to the rack like this and push it all the way to the back. Down. Make sure it's sealed all the way around. And once that's sealed, just come over to the heating element, hit the on button. Hit the on button and let the temperature come up to 50 degrees Celsius like we had mentioned. Once it reaches 50 degrees Celsius, I like to put the skis on the clock, put them on a timer. Generally speaking, I like the skis to be in the bag for about 4 hours and not really much longer than that. Okay, after the 4 hours has passed and the skis have had a chance to soak up the wax, we're just going to open up this bag again, and we're going to be really careful to open this up gently. Make sure none of the skis are going to fall out as we open it. Reach in here, take the skis out, and they're going to be really wet and warm from the thermal bag. The wax is going to have to cool off before we can do any work to it. We can just bring them over to the wall over there by the benches, lean them up against the wall, bases out, not touching another ski, and within about 5 or 10 minutes the skis will be cool enough that the wax is hard again, and you can work with it. Okay, once the skis have gone through that thermal bag process and you get them back over to the bench and they've cooled to room temperature, you can work with the skis again. And so at this point, basically what we're going to do is the whole waxing and brushing process over again, minus the base wax cleaner. We're not going to do that step. So what we're going to do is scrape the skis down, work through our wax, our brush progression from the most aggressive brush to the least aggressive brush, re-wax the skis with the appropriate wax, whatever that might be, and then we're going to go back into the thermal bag. Once they go back into the thermal bag, they're going to go back in for 4 more hours, so that'll be the second cycle through, and then that's it. They come back over to the bench here, and then we make sure we clean up the sidewall material, buff it out with a scrubby if we need to, and we'll have to check the work tag, see whether or not the skis need to be scraped and brushed and left that way. Generally speaking, we're going to be leaving the wax on the skis. So at that point, we're pretty much done with the wax work. We'd go through and clean the top sheets to make sure they're nice and clean and they don't have a lot of wax residue on them. So we just use a base cleaner and a clean cloth like this, rub them down, and then we're done.